Hey, She Slayers, welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day. I'm your host, Lauryn Brunswick. Nice to meet you if it's the first time. I don't know if this is the best episode for you to listen on the first time, but you're here, so we might as well do it. And for all you people who've been with me for a while, hey girl. Okay, so I have actually a relatively large announcement, and some of you who are super stocky actually already know this. I mean stocky like stalk someone, not like, oh, she's built tough, stocky. You could be both, but I'm talking more about the fangirls who actually know this and is not surprised. We are officially accepting applications for an associate position at my clinics in northwestern Wisconsin, Rice Lake, Wisconsin, and Cumberland. We're looking to add a third doc, and I felt like this episode was, you'll find out more about what this episode's about, but I thought it was a really good time. So a little bit just about the position is we're looking for someone to start early to mid next year. I'd really love someone to be in there by June 1st, but I'm also very willing to wait for the perfect person. So if you listen to today's episode and you're motivated to reach out to me, but you would need to sell a clinic, don't worry, we're not really in a rush. There's a part of me that's really liking just adjusting a lot. So that's cool. We are open to part-time or full-time. Like I said, I'm really liking adjusting. But I have so many different ideas of like working with the schools in 2021. And like, there's some very cool opportunities where I could definitely find someone a full-time position for suresy. But if you're like, actually, I'm a mom and I'm looking for like 15 hours a week, cool. I could make that work too. Okay, so Kirby's gonna kill me for saying this, but like it's Rice Lake, Wisconsin, y'all. So if you're interested, I recommend you come with a man. Let me take that back. Very sorry. I recommend you come with a partner. I don't care. It's just slim pickings around here, people, that you will not be hired. The legal department would like me to let you know that we will not hire you because you are single. That was just more girl to girl. Like, it's Rice Lake, Wisconsin. The population is 8,000. So, anyways. But other than that, now that I've officially talked you out of applying for the job, Blue Hills Chiropractic, it's a really cool environment. Like, I love our clinic. Obviously, I made it. And you get to work with me all the time. And for those of you who've been listening for a long time, you're like, is that a selling benefit or is that a takeaway? No. We've got a team of 6 of us, 6 women and Kirby, and we just have tons of fun. We are like 35 to 40% peds, a lot prenatal. We have really good relationships with like the pediatricians and OBs in our area. We're all cash, which has its own, you might be like, oh, that sounds fun. It comes with its downsides. We love to market. We're a fun clinic. We're cool. So if you are interested, there's 2 parts. So one, send a resume to hello@bluehillschiropractic.com and include in that email a short, like 5 minutes or less, like video introduction of you. Give me like 2 interesting things about you and kind of where you see yourself 5 years from now in your career. Basically, it's like the 2020 version of a CV, a curriculum vitae. I just want to get a sense of who you are and like what makes you tick. And that's kind of what a CV is anyways, is giving me a little more. And so I'd just rather see it in video because we're a really social clinic. So yeah, also, I'd like to invite all of you, those interested in applying and not, to attend the Sublux Nation Summit, and you get to hear me talk about social media for 45 minutes, along with 9 other speakers, amazing speakers. Devin Vrana's there. Nona Javid's is the one who's putting it on. It's a virtual/online event, and best of all, it is $0 to attend, so it's free. Just mention my name in the referral section when you register at www.subluxnation.live. I don't get any kickback for that. That's just so they can track like how people came in and heard about it. So, but you should go because it's cool. Now, I will say that if you are blessed to live in the state of Wisconsin, on that same day, November 14th, I am going to be doing an in-person talk in Wisconsin Dells with Lona Cook, Christy Wick, Nicole Perdue from the WDC. Like, it's going to be a very cool in-person event, and that is also free. And that's on Saturday the 14th in the Dells. So you have options, people. If you're just like, I need more Lauryn in my life. So like I said, I timed to the release of today's episode with us announcing we're accepting applications because, one, I think that this chiropractor has a super cool story, like really, really cool, badass woman. And 2, you might resonate with some of the things that she says today and just kind of want to give you a call to action if you do. So Dr. Andrea Lange grew up seeing a chiropractor with her mom after she had a bad back injury being a competitive swimmer. But it wasn't until chiropractic school that she really understood the power of an adjustment and how much more it was than pain, and her philosophy life blossomed. For those who know me, you know that happened like 5 years into my career. I didn't even get that in school. So in schools where she learned about chiropractic care for newborns and young children, as well as pregnant moms, and this deeply resonated with her as she is a mom. And it's always been a lifelong dream of hers to take care of those patients. So now she has 2 children of her own and has a passion for helping moms create healthy families, grow more and more. So she is the associate, and I want to say partner, but by definition, it's associate. But you'll understand from their conversation that I have a feeling they view themselves as equals and partners in this together for Dr. Christy Wick in West Bend, Wisconsin. Those of you who know Dr. Christy, she's a dear, dear friend of mine. And she doesn't mess around. She likes the best chiropractors. So Andrea's got a very cool story to share with you of how she decided to leave her successful practice to become an associate and all the freedom that comes with it, and the life of working together on a team and not working by yourself. And she tells you in this that she does not regret it for 1 second. I think, okay, so completely non-selfishly, I think that this is a really important message to get out there. You have heard me say before that we really make people feel like being like owning their own is the only option for them. And I think that if you are an entrepreneur at heart, so you can be a chiropractor at heart and not an entrepreneur at heart, and you're going to likely not be very happy in practice. You're going to be like, wow, this whole business thing is not fun and stressful. And so I don't want to push anybody who has that entrepreneur spirit towards associating. But I think we've had decades of pushing people to owning their own, that it's okay to spend a little time being like, hey, it's not for everyone. You might be happier working on a team, not worrying about the PPP loan. You might be happier that way. And that there are relationships out there with your boss that is more like a partnership instead of this whole treating an associate like a slave labor. Oh, I don't think you're allowed to. Are you allowed to mention? I don't know if I was allowed to say slave labor anymore. I'm listening, I'm growing. I don't know if that's allowed in 2020 anymore, but you know what I mean. Paying you less, expecting super high hours. So she's got a great story, and I'm super excited for you to hear it. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the listener highlight, you guys. Oh gosh, I'm blaming Mercury. Okay. So this one is from Connor Charles, and it says, "Thank you so much for producing your podcast and content. As a recent grad, your podcast has been such a space for grounding, growth, and reassurance as I navigate my way through the first years of practice. Even my fiance and fellow chiropractor loves your podcast." Yay! Oh, thank you very much for taking that time. To date, as I am recording this, our 100th review still hasn't happened, yo. So like last week when Kirby and I told you, hey, you could be the 100th and maybe we'll do something special for you. I don't know if we said that last week. This week, I'm incentivizing you. I will do something. I will like give you a major shout out on my Insta story and tell everyone to go follow you. So if that's not bribery in its greatest form using social media, I don't know what is. Okay, let's pray and get down to brass tacks. Why? Why is it brass? Anyways. Dear God, thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with these women who are listening, whether they are listening now or a year from now or 2 years from now. Let this story resonate with whomever it needs to. And for the entrepreneurs out there, that they may not resonate with this in their story, but they may come across another female chiropractor, male chiropractor who's struggling, and let them find the encouragement and the passion to tell them like, hey, there are options. Like whoever told you that there was one right way to be happy in your career as a chiropractor was a liar. Help us as we sort through this time. Just continue to see out those lies everywhere, lies that we tell to ourselves, lies that society tells us, and just help us continue to seek your love, your truth, and what you want for us, because we know that is always and endlessly good. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, fellas and ladies, there's probably only like 4 fellas. Okay, ladies, and now is my conversation with Dr. Andrea Lange. So, hey, Dr. Andrea, welcome to the She Slices Today podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm excited. Per usual, all of my guests are either my friends or friends of my friends. I just really avoid awkward conversation.
Yeah.
So like, I don't like having people on that I'm like, oh, but what if I'm going to have to carry that conversation?
Right. How am I going to talk to that person?
What if they're really boring?
I feel like you and I are not going to have that problem.
I know. That's why I had you on. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll schedule Andrea. That'll be fantastic. How's your Friday going?
It's good. Yeah. Our server is being replaced at the office, so I literally can't get in there and do anything. So I've had a little bit of just extra time to get some other things done around the house today, which is mom life needs that sometimes.
Yeah. Yep, it does. Because you work on Fridays, right?
No, we don't adjust on Fridays, but I usually go in and do paperwork or something.
I didn't know you guys. Nobody was adjusting on Fridays.
Nobody's adjusting on Fridays.
Do you have Saturdays?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. 2-hour Saturdays, and then we rotate them as docs. So okay. It's going to work Saturday.
We do 7 to 10 on Friday. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like a better idea when I had somebody else to work that shift. And
now that it's you.
Now that it's me, I'm like, oh, damn it. But I don't know how we'd be able to get rid of it because of how many of like our school kids like that time.
Sure.
But I get anxiety from like 7:15 to 7:40 to make sure I don't fall behind because I'm like, they're going to be late for school and it's going to be my fault.
Gotta get them to school. Sorry, I'm stuck at the chiropractor. The line was too long.
So I started having to work Friday morning shifts like 2.5 months ago now. And like, you have to be there at 6:30. I say this like I don't set the rules. My boss says I have to be there at 6:30. We start people at 7. And I would like stroll in with like my first cup of coffee, just kind of like thinking we're going to ease into this. Like my 7 a.m.ers are like 6:55. They're like, boom. And I'm just like, you guys, I'm not caffeinated enough for this. So now I like
have to wake up early and like pretty much take shots of espresso. So I'm
you literally have to be ready and on it.
Got to be ready to work, I guess. So, So anyways, okay. Well, I, introduced you very, very minorly in the intro segment. I would love to know, because I actually only know bits and pieces of your story.
Sure.
So I would love to know who you are, who are you, and kind of like how you got to this point in life.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. There's a lot to that. So
pick the highlights.
I won't tell you. Well, I was born in February. No, I won't do that. So I am Andrea Lange, and I am a practicing chiropractor in West Bend, Wisconsin, alongside Dr. Christy Wick at River Shores Chiropractic. But I started my journey. I grew up a Wisconsin girl, grew up just on the south side of Milwaukee, but I decided for college, I just wanted to do something completely different with my life. And so I was one of the few students in my graduating high school class that like literally pieced out of the state and went somewhere completely different. So I went to Texas A&M for my undergrad. I knew nobody.
Nisa.
Yes.
I never knew how that connection
So you know what's
happened.
so funny is, sidebar, Denise and I didn't meet each other until chiropractic school, but we both went to Texas A&M.
Oh, funny.
And both of our husbands went to Texas A&M. Yeah. So, but we didn't know each other until chiropractic school, and then had a connection because we both were Aggies, which was kind of cool. So I did the whole undergrad thing at Texas A&M. Again, didn't know really a soul when I went there. I went honestly to go to vet school because I had worked for a vet my whole life, my high school life and all that. And I decided halfway through my undergrad that I was like, I just don't know if I want to do this. And I knew that I wanted to start a family, and the vet that I worked for was single, and he worked literally 6 days a week and then was on call all the other times. And I knew that the possibility was there for me to just take over his practice, and I just didn't want that lifestyle. And so I had like they talk about how you go to college and you have like a midlife crisis in college. That was me. I had that moment. And so I decided, it's like, I got to figure out something else. This isn't what I want to do. So instead I decided, like, if I could start over, what would I want to do? And I had been under chiropractic care. My mom and I just figured it out. I think the first time she took me to a chiropractor I was 6, and it was a Gonstead practitioner. And I asked her, because we had talked about it in the office the other day of, when was your first adjustment? And I asked her, like, why did you take me? Was there something going on that she said, no, I just went and they told me how good it was for you. And so that's why we took you. And so
all the pediatric chiropractors listening,
for real.
And I 30 years later or 20 years later, your mom still remembers. They just said it's good for kids too,
Mm-hmm. Isn't that funny? And I guess it's so funny to me because I never really knew that's why. Like, I remember seeing the chiropractor when I was young, but I really remember seeing the chiropractor when I was a competitive swimmer in high school for athletics, but I'd also hurt myself. And so I remember seeing a different chiropractor through that. And that was more of my chiropractic experience of what I could remember. But then I asked her, like, when I was really young, why did you take me? And it literally was because they told me it was good for you. And I thought, we tell people that every day. So
some do, some don't. It's okay.
And it's just crazy, like, how it came full circle, So I decided in college I was going to go on the path of chiropractic. I didn't have to switch my major. I already was a science major, graduated, and then decided to look at chiropractic schools in Parker. College of Chiropractic at the time was obviously in Dallas, and it was only 3 hours north of where we were. My husband, his family's from there. And so it was we toured it. It was an easy transition. We were close to home for him. Mm-hmm. My in-laws were there. And so I just went up there and decided chiropractic was what I was going to do. And I went through Parker. But it wasn't until, honestly, I was in Parker that I realized, like, holy crap, like, the nervous system is this crazy thing. I thought I was going to have this big ass, like, PT type of clinic. And I remember sitting in one of my first trimester, I think it was a philosophy class. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
I picked the best profession.
For real. And it was literally like, you want to talk about a paradigm shift? I felt like in that moment, everything I'd ever known or learned about flipped upside down. And I started to explore what the other side of the coin looked like. And that propelled me and pushed me to, instead of think of rehab, if you will, in the chiropractic sense, and think about what it would be like to help families create healthy families. So I did a ton of work in college as far as like, I was in Autumn Gore's office every Wednesday for almost the entirety of school. She was the doula for my first baby, but it was there and just watching her practice, and then having this core philosophy group with people like Denisa, that I really found my heart and my passion for chiropractic and kids and families and innate intelligence.
Whenever I hear people's like all the stuff they did in chiropractic school, I'm like, wow, I really like biffed it when I was in chiropractic school. Like, but it makes sense that it took me, like, I had my like rebirth as a chiropractor, like 3 or 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago at this point, where it was like, whoa, otherwise it was just like, I was 22 and drinking, and it was just it was like grad school. And I'm like, yep, this is cool. I didn't really like think much about it about chiropractic, because I had decided 10 years prior that I was going to be a chiropractor with very little doubt. So I didn't it was just like showing up to memorize the stuff and pass the test. Right. And then I hear people who are like hanging out with Autumn Gore, and I'm like, oh yeah, if I could go back, I'll do an episode. If I could go back,
what would I do? But don't get me wrong, I did all the same things.
Yeah.
I'm a Wisconsin girl at heart. I had to show them what it was like.
How come you guys don't drink beer down here? No, just kidding. Texas does not have that problem.
Right. Nope. So that was kind of how it got me to where, to deciding about chiropractic. We took a ton of MLS adjusting seminars, and a few of us took so many, and we traveled around. Like, we went to Life, and we went to I think we went to Sherman, maybe. I don't know. We followed Arnold Bernier all around for his adjusting seminars. And then by the end of chiropractic school, we were teaching them. Wow. And so it was, we put in a lot of work for philosophy and adjusting to be.
MLS is maximized living, right?
No. Oh. Making love to the spine. Did you not know that?
First of all, I'm really embarrassed that I didn't know that. Second of all,
I think,
wait, what? I'm so having an embarrassing moment because
this is great.
Those things where it's like every chiropractor listening probably is like, Lauryn, what did you do in chiropractic school? Like, literally, I am proving my point now. Northwestern did not let people like that up there, though.
You're correct. They didn't. You're right. No. Okay. So Arnold Bernier's adjusting seminars used to be called MLS, which was making love to the spine. However, I think in the years that they've changed what MLS stands for.
They got a better marketing person?
Maybe.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what it was now. However, at the time.
Oh my God, I'm so glad I asked. Go ahead, keep going.
No, I love this because I remember when we would like actively go and tell other students like, hey, we're going to have this adjusting seminar off campus. It's called MLS, whatever. And people would ask us, what does it mean? I'm like, oh shit. Now I
hate when you people ask that question.
And now people are going to think it's weird and and it's just adjusting. It's just,
I'm sure it's very cool. I'm sure it's very I can picture what they were going for.
Yes.
With that.
And he's French. So he,
yeah.
Can get away with some other things when you have a thick accent like that.
Yeah, you can. Okay.
So anyway, so we did a lot of adjusting seminars with MLS. But I feel like, I when I got out of school, I went the Cafe of Life model, which was Arnold Bernier's model. And it was because really it's all I knew at the time. And I was immersed in it, and I loved the heart and, the heart center of it. And I love every person that has been on my path that has gotten me to where I am. But do I think I maybe would have started a little differently if I knew what I knew now? Like if I could go back.
So what's the Cafe of Life model? So you graduated in what year?
I graduated in 2009.
Okay.
And I
up your own practice.
I started my own practice in actually June of 2010 because I was pregnant with our first baby, and I had her in January of that year.
Okay.
January 2010. And so then we had moved back to Wisconsin because I knew I wanted to open my practice, and I wanted to be close to my family. And so we moved back to Wisconsin and looked for a place to call home, and then decided to open a practice. So Cafe of Life is a vitalistic practice model, I will say.
Okay.
It's not a franchise. Every one of them is owned individually. There's no money ties. It was more of a philosophy of like, these are the ways you will practice because this is like the standard of care throughout. I think it honestly, and I maybe shouldn't say this out loud, but I think it came about because they wanted to make it a similar practice style so that if I knew this was the franchise before the franchise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I wanted to refer a family member to somebody in California and there was a Cafe of Life in California, I knew how similarly they practiced and what their heart center was, right?
Yeah.
But there was no money ties to it like there are with other franchises.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. It's kind of like if I see an ICPA doc that has an insight scanner. Right. I'm like, okay, I feel like I know what's going to go on in that practice, and it's very like me. Yep.
Right. And so that's what I believe the heart of it is that's why Arno created it. And so that's what I did. I moved back to Wisconsin and I opened up Cafe of Life Milwaukee, and started pounding the pavement for quite a few years.
Okay.
Which was fun. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how did, kind of fast forward through starting a business, when did you start to have doubt? Did you have doubts in the beginning that you just kind of shoved down about whether you wanted to open your own, or were you very confident that this is what you had to do?
Yeah. You're not going to be ready for this, but I'm going to tell you, the word associate never crossed my brain ever one time.
Yep.
It was never an option. It was never maybe I should lean this way, or maybe I never fought with that decision. It was, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to open my own practice. Boom, done. And that's it. The word associate was never, ever even close to my radar.
What's your Enneagram type?
2.
Wing 3?
I'm a 2. No, I don't know what my wing is. I want to say I'm maybe more wing 6, but could be 3 because I have a little bit more of that. When I set my mind to something.
You can only wing 1 or 3.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm more 3 then for sure.
Mm-hmm. But I bet you being a 2 and Christy being a 1, I bet that relationship is very symbiotic because you relate to her structure and organization.
Right.
Imagine. So, okay. So that does not surprise me at all that associate was not even an option. Not even because of your personality necessarily, but just because of our profession.
I mean, I think so, and I think back about it now because people want to know my story because it's not very often, and I know we're going to get around to this. It's not very often you hear somebody who owned their own practice. It was doing well. It was not failing by any source of any numbers, but they sold their practice and they became an associate. And so a lot of people want to know my story. And so as I've thought over these decision processes, I've always thought was there ever a time where associate was a thing? And to be honest, I felt and I should maybe poll my classmates that I still am really close with, but we never really talked about associateships in school either. It really wasn't a thing. And I feel like the only people that I knew that were going into associateships after college or after graduation were people who had family or they were tied to a practice back home.
Yep.
And it wasn't
There'd be a buy-in option,
Absolutely.
You're going to retire at this point.
Right.
Yeah. Or it was very stepping stone. So I had some people who were just wait, what? We're graduating in this many months. I'm not ready yet. And they were I guess I'll associate I'll get a job quick. And it was really to buy time.
Right.
Of like getting their feet below them. It was definitely not ever, I can't think of a single person back then that was like, I'm an associate as my career. Right. And it's just so asinine because like within dentistry, within veterinarian, within obviously within, private practice, medical world, like, it's very standard.
It is. And it's so funny that it's almost a term that's kind of, I hate to use the word, but bastardized in our profession, or has been. And I don't know if it's because I'm in it now that I'm seeing the flip side of it, of like that it's maybe turning. Maybe we're starting to create a different culture around what being an associate means and what it looks like. Maybe that's just my mission, is to help that process along, because I feel like, as I've learned over the last 11 years of practice, that not everybody needs to own a business, and not owning a business is not a failure. Does that make sense? Like, and I think that's
being a chiropractor does not need to be an entrepreneur. Being a chiropractor is enough of a career.
And I think that's where we maybe get stuck. And maybe that's what it is. Like, we spend all this time and all this energy and all this money in school, and we have now the title, right? And so with that title, that means that we have to build this huge entrepreneurial business as well. And that's not what we went to school for. And it's okay to not be that person.
Well, we're also, I would be shocked if you didn't hear this phrase a lot of, we eat our own. That's what we were told. We had this line all through school, and for, like, we eat our own, like, and so, associating, it was kind of like, well, do I want to go be used and abused by some jerk, or I guess I might as well start my own, because that other option sounds terrible. Like, it wasn't, I can say this because not very many men listen. There's like two. It's like Kirby and this other guy. I blame the men. I'm just going to say it. No, I don't hate on men. I'm joking. But like, I think what I will say is the introduction of such a high percentage of females in the profession is demanding the change.
Right.
I could see that just with like, man, I hate when I start a thought before I've like even thought about what the next words are in my head. I could see that like in an old traditional male model, female model, that like, because a guy, old school stereotypical, was like, I'm in charge of making money. She's in charge of the household. Like, it was an easier division of labor. And so they had the time. So like coming and showing up as a more subservient role of working for someone else could have been like viewed as emasculating. But now where it's like, no, we're also here. Like, we're here, and we're also going to be a chiropractor, but I'm also not going to like I'm not going to like swap. I'm not going to pretend to like put on a suit jacket and be like, okay, man, now you raise a kid. Like, we're past that stage of feminism. And now it's like, no, we're going to do this together. And finding that balance really doesn't allow for the bandwidth of something that doesn't fuel you. Holy cow. It took a while to get there, but there it is like, we are spread so thin because we have so many different hats that we're wearing, that unless being an entrepreneur fills you up, why the heck would you do it?
Right. Yes,
you're
right.
So when did the word associate start to enter into your mind?
Here we go again. I never looked for it ever. And it didn't enter my mind till Christy met me in a Kohl's one day and was like, hey, did you think about doing this together? And I was like, what? She knows this, that I left that meeting in Kohl's department store.
You guys met previously?
Yes. Okay. So a quick backstory. Christy and I met her at an EPOC event in Wisconsin. And I came up to her office once and kind of shadowed, because I had just bought the Insight. And so I was kind of wanting to see how she introduced it in her flow and, all this kind of stuff. And so I came up and shadowed one afternoon and we got along really great and we started this friendship.
Got it.
And so then in February of the next year, she sent me a Facebook message and said, hey, I have a question for you. When can we meet? And she wanted to meet now. Shocker. Right. And I said, well, how about tomorrow? But I'm going to be out running errands. It was my best friend's bachelorette party and I was getting all this stuff together.
Oh, wait, so you had an actual meeting at Kohl's? Like I thought you
were real
each other.
Yep. No, she met me in Kohl's.
Girlfriend doesn't drink coffee, so why would she meet you at a coffee shop?
Nope, Kohl's it was.
Ask this woman. I'm just going to drop a bomb and be like, hey, what if you didn't own your own?
Uh-huh.
Also, do you like this blouse? Should I get it?
Literally, it was and now looking back, it's the funniest story. And I wouldn't have it any other way because who could say that? Who could say, I walked into a Kohl's, met somebody there and they're like, hey, why don't you sell your practice and we can do this as a team? In literally the middle of a Kohl's department store on 124th and North Avenue.
So you didn't see it coming?
Did not. I had no idea. And she knows this, that I remember checking out at the checkout counter and I felt sick to my stomach because I was like, wait, what just happened? What am I even going to entertain this thought? Again, being an associate was never on my radar. Working on a team was on my radar. Mm-hmm. Being an associate was never on my radar.
You were going to be the one who had the associate, probably in that. Yeah,
absolutely. That is 100% where my brain was, that I would be the one that would bring on an associate and I would grow the practice from there. And again, you have to remember, my practice wasn't what we have right now at River Shores by any means, but I also wasn't failing by any means either. I had a beautiful practice full of people that I've had. I remember one of the first times somebody quit care at River Shores when I first started there. And I was like, people quit care? Because in my practice, people didn't quit care. Right. You know why? Because I'm a 2 and I love the hell out of people and I have no boundaries.
For you.
So I've had to learn boundaries over the years. But at the time, that's where I was, so I had a beautiful practice and I loved the people I took care of. I took care of moms and babies. And that was my thing. I took care of pregnant moms and babies. So after Christy laid that bomb on me and she said, just gut check it. If it's an absolute no, just tell me. And if it's maybe I'd like to at least ask questions, then just tell me that and we can ask questions. And so maybe in a few days or a week later, she came to my office and we sat and talked and figured out, I think my husband's response was, you might as well ask questions. We don't know what this is going to look like or what this means. And I remember saying, no, I've never wanted to do anything like this in my entire life. And he was like, but we should at least ask questions. So she came to the office and we sat down and my first words, and she could tell you this, is I refuse to jump into a situation that I'm the minion and doing all of the work I don't want to do instead of being the person that takes care of people, the person for them.
Yep.
Because I was the person for a lot of people in my practice. And I didn't want to leave that to just do, again, here's my mindset of this is what an associateship is, that I'm going to jump into a practice and I'm just going to get all the shit.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to get everything you don't want.
Exactly. Yep. That was 100% what I thought. Just because, again, that's what we've bred in our chiropractic culture, is that's what an associate is. And that I was very clear that was my number one, deal breaker. If I'm going to walk into a practice that I get the shit, basically, then I'm not going to do it. I would never leave my practice for that.
Yep.
And she was very clear on her vision. And she said, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to do this together as a team and not in a you do this and I'm way up here, way above you. And we do this together. Mm-hmm. And so it took a lot of conversations and a lot of discussions of what does this look like and painting the vision. But she knew how I ticked. And, before Enneagram was cool, she knew I was a 2, right? Before anything. And she knew that my heart is taking care of people. And I love taking care of people. That is my main role at River Shores, is I make sure that people are the most taken care of. And she knew that I could do that better and be in my power without having to do the other business stuff.
That's so important. And I mean, I believe that there are multiple other Enneagram types that would do fantastic as an associate instead of an owner. So I don't think it happens, but I do also happen to have a 2 as an associate. And I'm not going to tell her story, but basically she started a practice and was very, very unhappy. You know, she not a failing practice, just like she was mentally unhappy, which I think is different than your story. But it was because she had to deal with all this other stuff that took her away from caring for patients.
Right.
And that's where I really think so many women get burned out in our profession is they're taking on this burden that part of being a successful chiropractor is more than taking care of people.
Right.
And I don't buy it. I think that being a chiropractor is taking care of someone's health. Being a chiropreneur or, you know, like a small business owner and chiropractor is that, but like, I don't know. I hope that we continue to see people. I don't know what would it have taken if Christy wouldn't have, like, I guess you would have just kept going.
I would have just kept going, you know, and I think, you know, I know your associate and so I see some of myself in her. I think I may have gotten to that point, maybe that I was burned out, but I also was at a point in my practice where we were on a decent growth trend, but I still didn't have a team, right? It was me. I had a girl who worked, who was in high school, who worked part-time for me, who would answer the phone sometimes and would hold babies while moms got adjusted. That was her job. And so all the other duties fell on me. And I had just had another baby. I think she was just about a year when Christy and I had this conversation. You know, and so I was at the point of like, this has never even crossed my brain that this, like, I just was head down, let's just get it done. But then when the world opened up to me of like, hey, this could be different. Like I could walk in and take care of people and love on people all day. And then I could go home to my family.
Yep.
And what would that look like?
Yep.
What would that look like? Not only for me, but like for my family.
For your family. Yeah.
And that was a big deal.
You said that you were sick, almost sick, checking out. What do you think, what was battling inside of you that was making you like nauseous or sick?
Yeah.
Ego? What was going on?
Yeah. I honestly think a little bit of it was ego. And just the initial thought of like, I love my people. Can I even do this to them? Like, why am I even entertaining this thought? Because
so it wasn't even really about you. It was about your people.
For sure. I struggle.
This is why I say I have 0 2 in me. I would have been, I'm supposed to have 2. 3 is supposed to have a little 2. I have 0. I would have been like, I was not expecting. I was like, yeah, what does this mean for you as you successful? And you're just like, I can't do this for them. And I'm like, fuck them.
Right. It seriously was a lot of my hard conversations with myself, with my accountability group of my best friends, with my husband. The conversation more often than not came back to, I don't know if I can do this to them. Because I loved taking care of my people.
And it would have been too far for them to commute.
It would have been too far for them to commute.
So you brought up an accountability group. Were there other chiropractors that you consulted?
Yeah.
What was like the general average response? Were they supportive of this?
Super.
Oh, really? I didn't expect that. I expected kind of them to be in that, like, why would you? And
no, I think they were really good about letting me literally vomit out all the pieces of it, of all the ways I was feeling about it. Pros, cons, you name it, everything. And letting me just like get it all out. And then helping me put the pieces together of like, okay, now you got it out. So now let's feel it. Like, let's figure out what that means. And so, no, they were extremely supportive, and not like pushed me in that way, but were like, yeah, if this makes sense for you, do it. if this makes sense, do it. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
So, and let me tell you, I think that was the hardest part about it was I had to learn the boundary of, again, being a 2, my highest need is to be loved, right? And my number one strength is empathy. And so that was one of the biggest moments in my life where I had to learn what it was to put myself first instead of other people's needs first, which was so hard as a chiropractor because I just wanted them to be taken care of. But in this moment, I knew that there was a potential that I could better my life and my family's lives if I did something different. And I took this radical change and went this way instead of what the path I was on.
What was did you sell your practice or dissolve it?
I sold it.
What was that process like?
Well, that was, I think this is where I struggled the most. And let me tell you, looking back, I'm the luckiest person on earth because I made it. I hustled to find the person for my practice, to buy my practice, instead of just like putting it out there on the interwebs and like, which now I'm like, was the internet a thing back then? I'm just kidding. It was, but it feels like so long ago, but it really wasn't. A lot of people right now will sell their practice and they'll just put it out there and put ads out there, where I hustled and I went to people in the area and I said, here's where I'm at. This is what I want to do, but I'm not going to just leave my practice to anybody. So I want to know if you want it. And I had one husband and wife couple in mind. And I had also talked to 2 other people that I knew in the area, but one couple in mind. And I just told them, and they know Christy really well. And I could tell them this is the McCanns. Kate and
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. So their practice was about 10 minutes from mine. And I went to them and I said, here's where I'm at. This is what I want to do. Do you want to buy my practice? And so after lots of talks with them too, because I knew they would take care of people the same way I took care of them. And so after lots of talks with them, that's who ended up buying my practice. Now they bought my patient files, if you will, and I dissolved the rest of the, as far as the building and equipment and whatever. But I just transferred all of my people over to their office, which was only 10 minutes away.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, this whole thing, even going back to you being in college and being like, oh, I don't want to be a vet, I want to be a chiropractor. Like there's this like golden halo that just like as you tell your story, that it's just like, you can just see like these little angels, like guiding and like working things out really nice. And I'm sure it felt so much messier at the time. Like, do you look back on your story and like, when you listen to this, go like, kind of sounds like it was easy, but I doubt it was.
It wasn't. No, I remember multiple times, but one time in particular, sitting in my driveway at home, talking to a friend about all the things and just hyperventilating, bawling, because it was so hard to make these decisions. And it was so hard to know, like, is this going to fall in the right place? And if it doesn't fall in the right place, then what do we do? And my husband had a job in Milwaukee. If we move up to West Bend, what is that going to look like? And we have kids, and now we're moving away from my family. And, so there was a lot of big decisions, but I think Jeff, my husband, and I just had to kind of keep our eye on the vision of like, there's a reason why we're doing this, and this is what it looks like in the long run. And so we just had to keep our eye on that and just keep going. But it wasn't easy. It sounds easy now because you're like, oh, that fell into place nice and that fell into place nice.
Well, but isn't that everything? Like, isn't that like when you can look back and go, and you're telling a story and then you're like, and then like coincidentally, like I got an email. And it's just like, God has funny ways where when we're in it, it just feels so messy. But like you look back and you're like, wow, how many things blew up this year that even in 2021, like even barely past it, people are going to go, thank God that happened. Because if it wouldn't have, I'd still be doing X, Y, or Z,
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, any regrets at all?
No. Not a one. I get asked that a lot. By my friends who are not chiropractors that like have been friends of mine since I was a kid, maybe. Mm-hmm. And they saw the process and didn't maybe really understand it because they're not in the chiro bubble. I get that asked a lot, and I have never once said, yeah, well, I wish that. No, never, not one regret.
How important, and this is going to be hard because we know Christy's going to listen to the episode. How important do you think it was for your and Christy's vision to be in alignment, personalities to be in alignment, like your work ethics to be in alignment? Like, could it have worked if you guys were super different? Do you think you'd be as happy? I mean, I guess of course you wouldn't be as happy, but like, could that still work?
I don't know. That is a really hard question because we do just fit really good together. Mm-hmm. Like, we're very different, and we'll both tell you that. She's very introverted and I'm not, and she's very like head in the game all the time, and I'm not, and not in a bad way. Like, I'm more of like, I want to be out there taking care of people, and she's like, let's figure out how to do the business side. So in one aspect of it, because our personalities are so different, she grounds me in some ways and I ground her in some ways. And so I think it's really worked for us. But the biggest thing is we know what we want to create for our community, and we know what we want to create for River Shores. And we know what we want to create for our own personal selves. I know what I want for myself, and she knows what I want. And I know what she wants, and she knows what she wants. And so I think that's the biggest thing about being in an associateship is it has to be a team. Right. Like, and so both sides have to go into it as a team, not just the owner.
Yeah.
You both have to go into it as a team. And I always tell people who are wanting to associate, no matter how long you feel that you're going to associate, whether it's like, I'm just going to do this as a stepping stone out of school, or if you feel like this is my career path, you have to go into it feeling like this place that you're going to call home has to be part of your self too. Like, it has to be your baby too. Mm-hmm. And I know as an entrepreneur, and I know Christy has said this a lot, like, this is River Shores is her number one baby. And I totally get that because I've been there, and I know that Cafe of Life was my baby, and I did all the things to nurture it and grow it. But as an associate, I don't feel any less about River Shores than I felt about Cafe of Life.
Right. And that's
I think important. It's so important because if I ever had a feeling of that I'm going to walk into this practice and it's not really my practice. Mm-hmm. And so do I really need to give as much of a shit about it as I did my other practice? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yep, totally.
I walk into it.
Your work wouldn't feel purposeful because yep. Yeah. And I like, you talking about it being, it's a team, not an employer-employee. And so just like, hold on, I'm going to make like a football reference here. You can have like a running back and a quarterback, and they can have really different personalities, and they can have different times of day and different drills and all. They can have completely different styles of work, but their mission is to win games.
Right.
And like, so as long as your mission and vision are in alignment, that, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, well, what happens if you like really feel like I want to go to closed room adjusting? Mm-hmm. And Christy wanted to do completely open, like how would that work? And as long as you have a united vision, you can really be kind of unemotional about like, well, I'm the boss, so this is what we're going to do. And you're like, damn it, this is why, like you can be like, okay, what is going to be best for the patients? And you can come to this decision together where it's not necessarily that she won because she was the boss and you lost because you were on her payroll. It was like, no, we made this decision together, even though we came from different spots.
Right.
And we agreed because our vision and mission of serving people is the same.
Right. You're absolutely right. And I think that's part of it too, is on both sides of it, to get past the we eat our young associate stereotype. I think we all have to drop a lot of ego and come from it in a team workplace of how can we serve our communities better? Mm-hmm. And we can serve our communities better by having a group of wonderful team members and like a rocking practice that we can take care of more people. Mm-hmm. And we can love on people in a different way, in a deeper way, instead of it feeling like, oh, you have to stay in your corner over here and I'm going to stay in my corner over here because our egos are too, we have to keep our pride, at bay. Where together we can do more. Yep. And it's so much more powerful. And, and coming from somebody who never had a team to somebody that has a full staffed team and does a lot of things that for me that I don't have, like, I don't have to answer the phone anymore. Do I still sometimes? Yes.
And my husband hates when I answer the phone.
I was just going to say,
I'll be like sitting there, which I'm sure they also hate, where like just sometimes they'll like go to the bathroom and I don't have patience and I just sit down in their chair and they just politely stand there and then the phone rings and they're just like, oh my God, get away from the desk, Lauryn.
And I was just going to say that I do still answer the phone sometimes. I can schedule anybody, but a lot of times like, can I put you on hold, please? I will get Ashley for that.
I'm like, how do I put them on hold?
100%. So going from someone that has been the person that has done all the things to somebody that I don't have to, I have a team that we support each other and we can do, we do it all together. Let me tell you, having a team, there's nothing like it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like walking into a place that not only do you love the people you work with, but you know that they are pushing for the exact same thing you are. And like you walk out of there like, dang, we made a difference today and we did it together. It wasn't me. And it wasn't just Christy and it wasn't just Ashley RCA. We did it together as a team. And that support is completely invaluable. And so if I could teach anything, or if I could tell anybody or convince anybody of like, looking at an associateship in a different way, it's that the level of play with a team is unbounded.
You paint a very beautiful, I love it. I believe that through conversations like this, through examples like you, that I really feel like we're going to change things. I really do. And that's super cute and naive of me, but like it's going to happen. Women will demand it. Women will demand examples of like, no, I don't want to do that. Show me something different. And so you are delightful. Thanks. I would like quarantine to be over so it's more socially acceptable to come together. So, well, thank you so much, Dr. Andrea. Tell people your Instagram so they can follow you and all your adventures. And
oh my gosh, I don't know if you want to follow me on Instagram. I don't really put much on there, but
your kids are on there.
It's, my kids. If you want to see all of my two children who are the cutest things in the world.
Okay. Well, no, really, it's more about how can somebody reach out to you? Would you prefer they reach out to you on email, or like if somebody's like, oh, this episode kind of like stirred something up for me and I would love to pick your brain on a couple things. How do you want people to reach out to you?
You can send me a message on Instagram. I'm on it all the time. It's Dr. Andrea Lange. Okay. That's my handle because Dr. Andrea.
Did you make back when Dre was still, was Instagram even a thing?
No, it wasn't. But my whole life, my friends have called me Dre my entire life. If you ask Christy rarely calls me Andrea. It's always Dre. But my whole life, it's from a kid on, it's always been Dre. And so then when I got a doctorate, Dr. Dre just became a thing and I don't hate it. So
all the kids listening, if you don't know who Dr. Dre is, did we just improve your day? If you are driving, if you are running, when this episode ends, go to Spotify or Apple Music.
You got to listen to Don't Forget About Dre.
Don't forget about Dre. Gosh, I love it. All right. Well, thank you for spending your Friday with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. We're both in Wisconsin, but so far.
So close.
So close. So far.
So close.
All right, Cheese Slayers. I hope that whether you are an associate, this like validated that like, hell yeah, that's a great option in life. If you're an associateship and you're like, oh, that's not my story, well, maybe you need to look for a different job. Or if you are owning your own and you're kind of like, I'm kind of lonely, and what would that look like? I believe that the first step is just putting it out there and like opening your mind to like, that's interesting. And I feel like, things will kind of happen from there, but the first step is being open to it. So reach out to Dr. Andrea or Dr. Dre if you, if you have questions for her, and reach out to me if you have questions about working. If you would like to come be on my dream team, reach out to me. So until next week, She Slayers, bye.